I'm Terry Miller. I'm a professor of theater arts. Chiefly I teach literature. I've also directed a lot of plays on our main stage, and I teach playwriting. I'm also the assessment coordinator for the Department of Theater Arts, and I have been for about 12 years now. When you're working on assessment in the beginning, you work with some large groups of faculty because you're trying to determine things like the department's mission statement, although most departments will have a mission statement lying around that they could use for that. You're trying to determine what your learning objectives will be, and those are things that really require the discussion of the whole faculty. But after a while you find that you can move into dealing with smaller groups because, let's say, we may be measuring student skills in acting. I only need to be speaking with the acting instructors about that. So most of my work in the department recently has been with small groups. I really prefer that. I feel that the discussion tends to be more focused. You don't usually have one person holding forth for 25 minutes and 5 others sitting silent. It works well, and also the time commitment to a small meeting can be less. So as we go forward, whether we're working on revising a rubric or whether we're trying to decide what we should do about a shortcoming that we perceive in our program, I'm usually working with 2, 3, 4 faculty on it at a time. We have 5 main goals that we're looking at. We would like our students to be able to read a script, analyze it, and be able to write articulately about it. We would like them to be able to develop specific skills in a specialty, acting, design, directing, whatever their choice may be, and demonstrate those things. We would like them to be versatile theater artists and have some expertise in several different areas. We would like them to be able to communicate very effectively in speech and writing. And we would like them to be good team players. And we have rubrics and activities to measure each of those things. There are a number of things that you find out through assessment. It's not as though formal assessment begins our process of evaluating students' work. We've all been doing that from the beginning of time. And I think a lot of our assessment of their work is very accurate. But usually we're looking at one student at a time, one class at a time, one semester at a time. And if we do assessment well, it allows us to look at most or all of the students in our program and how they're doing, and not only over a short period of time, but over several semesters or several years. So that if we should use an assessment activity and it shows us that our students are not performing as well as we would like in one particular area, we can start trying things to fix that deficiency, and then our assessment, our continuing assessment, will allow us to see how those changes we made affected the student performance over the next, let's say, 5 or 6 years. So that part of it is new. The ability to look at the program as a whole and look at the program over a period of time. And that gives you different answers and different ways of thinking about problems. It also encourages you to look at the whole program and not just one course. So that I think more now about how my course might affect the students when they take the next course that follows it in the sequence, and how they'll be best prepared for that. And I think that's a real value. It has stimulated us to talk a little bit more with the instructors who teach the courses that follow ours or that precede ours. And those discussions are always interesting. Sometimes, as in the case of student writing, which needs improvement across our campus, it's been really interesting to engage in a lot of discussion with faculty members about what they're trying to do to improve it. And we have stolen a lot of exercises from one another in order to do that, so that that discussion is increased and enriched. And I think it's valuable. I've always enjoyed talking about teaching with my colleagues, and I would say we probably don't do that enough. I think assessment stimulates you to do it more. It also really focuses on what the students are getting. And traditionally, higher education has looked at, we will offer this, the student will appreciate that, the student will be exposed to this. Assessment is asking, what skills will the student gain in the class, and how do we measure those skills so that we can really look at whether we're successfully meeting our goals in education. And I think that is a really worthwhile effort. Also, assessment is looking to state those goals very clearly, not only for faculty, but also for students, for parents of students, and other stakeholders. And I think that's a real positive. So a lot of times in doing this work, we're discovering what's important to us. Sometimes we'll get an assessment result. It will show the students aren't strong in a particular area, but our discussion will be, do we care? And sometimes the answer to that is no, not that much. We're doing a better job to emphasize another area. If we do care, then we need to start tinkering and introducing new reading, new curriculum, new exams, new exercises to see if we can meet that need. There are a number of things that we've talked about doing. One of the things that's really powerful in assessment is input directly from the students about their experience. And in our department, we've used focus groups to address that. And we've got some really good information out of it, but there are also certain problems. It's hard for us to arrange for a large number of students to do the focus group because of timing issues. Scheduling can be difficult for the people who are running the focus group for us also. So in order to get broader information, I'm thinking that it would be great for us to have an exit survey, which a lot of departments have. So one of the things that will be a project in the near future, we'll be trying to develop an exit survey for our graduating seniors to be able to tell us what they care to about their experience of our program and how well prepared they feel in each of our learning goals. Then beyond that, I'd like to be able to get more and more systematic information on our alumni, because where your alumni are working and what they do after school, how they do with graduate school admissions and how they fare in graduate school, all that is of interest. It reflects on the job that we're doing, and also it's information that can be very powerful as a recruitment tool. It's difficult in theater because our students who work in theater will be working all over the country for a few months at a time. They'll be for many months looking for work and not finding it. It's difficult to keep track of them. So one of the things that we're doing right now is looking into using social media as a way of keeping a better track on our alumni and their work history, so that we can look at that in terms of our own performance and also to use it as a recruiting tool. And I think a lot of the assessment information can be used in that way. It's not only information that's useful to the faculty of a department, it's useful in a number of ways. The most important advice that I would give, and the assessment coordinators have probably heard this already, is that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. I mentioned before that there's always a mission statement. You don't have to create a mission statement for your assessment plan. That's only one example. There are a lot of good ways in which you're measuring student performance now. You don't necessarily have to invent new measures for assessment. You need to be able to pick which ones of the questions you're asking now, which of the projects that you're assigning now would be very good in order to assess one of your learning goals. Then you find a way to collect that information in a statistical form that will allow you to look at it over large numbers of students over time. But it isn't necessarily a whole new exercise. It ideally should be something that you're doing already that can prove to be useful. Assessment doesn't have to be hard, and in fact, if the activities are too time-consuming for faculty, they won't be done over time, and so they're pretty much useless. In our department, when we find that something is just too time-consuming, it's too much work, we throw it out. At the moment, we're looking at assessment for GE classes, some of which have very big enrollments. And I was just reassuring one of our faculty members that you don't necessarily need to read 200 papers for assessment. You can randomly sample a manageable number out of that group and read those. The information that it'll give you is probably the same. And it gives you something that will be much easier to do and therefore sustainable. The other thing that I would advise assessment coordinators to do is to work mainly in small groups, which I've always tried to do. It just makes the discussion a little easier and more focused. Those would be the main things. One other one, actually, along with small groups, is ask people for the time that you're pretty sure you're going to need, and then stick to that. So I'll normally ask people if they can meet with me for 20 minutes or half an hour. And I make sure that's how long it takes, so that they get the feeling that I respect their time. I think that's very important in getting your colleagues to say yes.